Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is we'll be looking at our Week 7 college football games for the 2024 season that are not top 25 matchups. We actually had our top 25 prediction video come out yesterday. By all means, check that one out. But this is for all of the other games, all the other matchups that do not involve a top 25 team. There's really good matchups coming up this weekend. Just because you're not in the top 25 doesn't mean that your game does not matter at all. We want to look at every game. We have really good teams playing. We have teams that were just in the top 25. We had some teams that are going to be in the top 25. A lot of these games still mean a lot. We'll be breaking them down, the matchups, looking at who we think is going to win, lose, and trying to predict the final score. And we'll also be doing the best bets, looking at the money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. If you have any comments about these games or any other ones, drop them below and I will respond. Every week, we go over every single matchup for the 2024 college football season. And we also do the same thing for every NFL game as well. If you're a football fan or sports fan, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you can follow along with us. So just to kind of get things started, our very first matchup, we have two Friday night games that we're going to look at first. The first one is going to be on Fox at 8 p.m. 2 and 3 Northwestern. They'll be visiting 3 and 2 Maryland. Right here, Maryland has an 86.8% chance to win this game. They are 10.5-point favorites. That's a pretty big spread for an in-conference Big Ten on Big Ten matchup, and the over-under here is 45.5. When you're looking at these two teams, Northwestern, their offense leaves a lot to be desired. It's pretty bad. They come in, they average 18.6 points per game. They're passing for 182.2. They're running for 127.4. But they do have a solid defense, giving up 20.8 points a game. That's actually really good considering the fact that their offense doesn't get first down. So the defense is on the field the whole game. They'll be led by Lausch. They have Porter at running back. They have Henning at wide receiver. And then Maryland. Loxley's team has a pretty good offense. He always has a good offense. They always average, 30 to 35. They give up 20 to 25 points. They can move the ball. The Big Ten is very competitive. These matchups do mean a lot. Right now, they come in, they're averaging 33.4. Pass-heavy offense. They're throwing for 319.6, running for 146.6. So they're averaging, around 460, 470 yards per game. That's pretty good for a defensive-focused Big Ten, and their defense is giving up 21.8. Their biggest weakness is their defense gives up 285.2 passing yards per game. That's really bad. Thankfully for them, Northwestern really has no success passing the ball, but they do have a really good offense on the Maryland side. You have Edwards Jr. coming in. He's closing in on 1,500 yards. He has 11 touchdowns, 2 picks. They have Hemby at running back. They have Felton at wide receiver, closing in on 700 receiving yards. Look for Maryland to seek to air it out. Just can their offensive line get Edwards time? I have Maryland winning this gun in a lower scoring one, 27-20. So not covering the spread, but I'll still be going with the over here. The next matchup, we have a team that actually just got kicked out of the top 25, just lost their first game of the season. We have 4-1 UNLV just having left the top 25, but fighting to try to get back in at 9 p.m. on CBS on Friday. They'll be playing 1-4 Utah State. UNLV has a 91.3% chance to win this game. 18.5-point favorites. Massive spread there. The over-under here is 65.5. When you look at UNLV, they obviously had a lot of news come up the last 2 weeks. So they had Sluka, their quarterback. He was their leading passer, leading runner. He left the team, said he didn't get $100,000 in NIL bucks left, and he's going into the transfer portal. Caused a lot of chaos. Williams was the transfer quarterback. He comes in. He has lit things up the last 2 weeks. He's passing. He's the leading rusher now. Has only played 2 weeks. Props to him. They have White the third at wide receiver, closing in on 400 yards. UNLV has zero issues moving the ball. They're averaging 44.4 points a game. A solid defense, only giving up 19.8 points a game. This is a well-rounded team, and they're running for 252 yards per game. They're going to suck up clock. They're going to air it out, but they're going to keep the ball on the ground, especially with their quarterback, who is mobile. He's played really good the 2 weeks that he's been starting at the FBS level. And then Utah State. They leave a lot to be desired on offense. They're only averaging 23.2 points a game, and they're going to be playing a top 25 defense this weekend, but they do throw a lot. They do average almost 280 through the air, 170 on the ground. It's pretty crazy that they're averaging almost 500 yards per game, but they're only averaging 23.2 points a game. That's because they're really bad in the red zone when it matters. They can get down there, but they don't seem to be able to punch it in, and their defense is atrocious, giving up 41.4 points a game. One of the worst defenses in the country, if not statistically the worst defense in the nation. I have UNLV taking advantage of that, running all over them, sucking up clock, winning this one 44-23. I have them covering the massive spread still, and I will be going with the over. There's going to be some points scored here. This next one, I'm not going to lie, I kind of went back and forth on. This is a really close game. This is two evenly matched, defensively focused teams. We're now moving on to our Saturday games at 12 p.m. on Fox. 4-2 Washington Huskies. They're coming off of that win versus Michigan. If they win this game, they will be in the top 25 next week. They'll be playing at the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are 3-2. Iowa at home. It's a tough place to play. So Washington really has their work cut out for them. Iowa has a 60.2% chance to win this game. They are slight favorites here. 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 41.5. That's a very high over-under for an Iowa team because they are not a very good offensive team. They have not been for the last decade. Washington, they're coming in hot. They have the emotional win versus Michigan. They have a really well-balanced team. They have Will Rogers, the experienced quarterback. He's closing in on 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns, only one pick. He's very efficient. He's a veteran quarterback. Obviously, he was the starter under Mike Leach at Mississippi State. He's played top 10 defenses before, and he has a great statistical career. They have Coleman at running back, 601 rushing yards. They have Boston at wide receiver, closing in on 500 yards. Jed Fish has really retooled this team since Kalen DeBoer left. They lost a lot through seniors and through the transfer portal, but they are building this team foundational-wise from the bottom up. Right now, Washington, they average 25.5 a game. They throw for 311.3. They run for 163.3. But look at their defense, a top 15 defense nationally, only giving up 13.2 points per game. That is elite. That is great. That is Big Ten football. But Iowa, they come in, they average 27 points a game. They run for 223. Obviously, they have one of the best running backs in the nation. They have Kalen Johnson closing in on 800 rushing yards. Yes, the Buckeyes were able to control him last weekend, but this guy is elite. He might get 1,600 yards this season. They have McNamara at the quarterback position. There's not much to say there. He is what he is. He's just serviceable. He's not very good. And they have Gill at wide receiver. But what Iowa holds their nose to is they are only giving up 18 points a game. We know Kirk Ferentz, the longest tenured coach in the nation. He goes 10-2 every season. Great coach, but he always has a bottom 20 offense in the nation, but they always have a top 10 defense, and they are one of the best, if not the best, special teams in the nation. I have Iowa winning this one, and a really close one. Probably won't be decided till the very end of the fourth quarter. Might be a missed field goal. I have Iowa winning this one 22-17, but if Washington won it 2017, I would not be surprised. This game is practically a 50-50. I don't want to go anywhere near it, but I have Iowa covering, but I'm going to be going with the under. Iowa goes under a lot. The next matchup at 12 p.m. on the Big Ten Network, 3-2 Wisconsin Badgers. Luke Fickell really needs to rally this team. They are pretty banged up. Obviously, TBD goes down, so they have Locke stepping in. He is closing in on 700 yards. They need a really good offensive performance here. That's the main thing kind of holding this team back. They'll be on the road at 4-1 Rutgers. Rutgers is coming off of that really close physical loss versus Nebraska. Do not sleep on Greg Schiano's squad here. If they win this one, go 5-1. They might get top 25. They might be borderline top 25, but this is easily a 20-25 top team in the nation right now, and they have a great defense. Right now, Rutgers is the favorite at home. They have a 60.6% chance to win this game. 2.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 40.5. This is going to be a close one. This is going to be a trench warfare game. Rutgers is built for that. They just had that versus Nebraska. Physical matchup in the trenches at the line of scrimmage. That's what this game is going to be, because Wisconsin is also a line-focused team. Yes, they do run the air raid with Phil Longo, but Luke Fickell wants to generate the trenches, build the lineup. They want to run the ball. They have Locke, Walker. They have Anthony the second. Wisconsin's averaging 27.6 a game. They're giving up 22.6. They need to get the run game going. That used to be Wisconsin's strength. They need to get back to it. That's what they're built for. Rutgers, they average 29.4. They throw for 200.2. They run for 205.8. And elite defense, a top 15 defense, giving up 15.8 points a game. And they have Menage at the running back position, closing in on 700 yards. He's going to be the bell cow here. He's going to get a lot of carries. They're going to run downhill. They're going to win this game in the third and fourth quarter once the Badgers start getting wore out. I have Rutgers making the difference second half, winning this one 23-20, covering the spread. I'm going with the over. The next matchup we're looking at 12 p.m. on the CW network, 4-2 Georgia Tech. They'll be playing 3-3 UNC. Mac Brown needs this win. He cannot drop to 3-4. He's a long-tenured coach. He's on the older side. You don't want to be sub 500. People will definitely be calling for your job. Right now, Georgia Tech on the road has a 56.8% chance to win this game. They are 6-point favorites. The over-under is 58.5. Georgia Tech, they average 31.5 per game. UNC, they average 32.7. These teams are basically balanced there. They're very even. They're very even on the offensive side. Georgia Tech throws for 258. UNC, they throw for 263. Georgia Tech runs for 177. UNC runs for 198. Georgia Tech has the edge on defense. That could be the difference maker here. Defense travels on the road. They only give up 19.3. UNC has an awful defense. They just gave up 70 points 2 weeks ago to a very lowly team. They have basically no defense. They give up 28.7, 272 through the air. There will be opportunities for Georgia Tech to pass. Haynes King, he's closing in on 1,500 passing yards, and they have Jamal Haynes at the running back position, Rutherford as the wide receiver. Georgia Tech, a very balanced team, and they can run. They can go downhill. UNC, they have Chris Will filling in for Max Johnson. He did get hurt, this first or second week of the season. But what the offense is built around is Omarion Hampton, one of the best running backs in the nation, a top 5 running back closing in on 800 yards. They ride him all game long. He runs, catches the ball out the backfield. They're going to give him 25, 30 carries this game, but I think Georgia Tech is going to win it in the end, winning on the road, 34-28. So that's a push right there. I do think that spread might move by the time that we get to game time, and I also have this one going over as well. In our next matchup at 12 p.m. on CBS, 1-4 UAB. This team is just not very good. They have a bad offense. They have a bad defense. They'll be playing at undefeated 5-0 Army. Props to them. Army has a 92.1% chance to win this game. 25.5 point favorites. That is a massive spread. And the over-under here is 54.5. UAB, they average 22.4 points a game. They throw for 228. They run for 156, but their defense is giving up 36.8. They give up 227 rushing yards per game. That's not going to fare very well versus a triple option, extremely run-heavy team. You give up almost 230 yards just on average versus the average team, let alone a team that will run the ball for 95% of the snaps. Right now, Army, really good team. They average 38.8. They only throw for 91, but you don't have to throw. The other team will not be able to stop your run game. They run for 361.2, and they have a top 10 defense, only giving up 9.8. A very balanced team. They have Bryson Daly. He's the leading passer. He's the leading rusher, closing in on 700 yards. They're going to run all over UAB, but UAB might get some garbage time points. I have Army winning this one 35-13, not covering the spread, and going with the under still. The next matchup is one of our ACC battles on the ACC network at 3:30 p.m. 3-2 Louisville, who just got kicked out of the top 25, dropping that game to SMU. But they could easily find themselves in the top 25 later this season, and they only have one conference loss, so these games mean a lot to them. They'll be playing 4-1 Virginia. Props to Virginia, having a great season so far. Right now, Louisville is the favorite. They have a 76.3% chance to win this game. 7.5 point favorites. The over-under here is 54.5. Looking at Louisville, this is a very well-balanced team. They have a top 30 offense. They have a top 30 defense. Right now, under Shaw, he's closing in on 1,500 yards. He has 13 touchdowns, only 2 picks. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball. They have Brown at running back. They have Brooks at wide receiver. They're averaging 38.6. They throw for 316. They run for 169.2. And solid defensive play, only giving up 19.6 points a game. This is easily the best team that Virginia's played this season. But this is not the best team that Louisville's played. They've played 2 ranked teams. They've played Notre Dame. They've played SMU. They're very battle-hardened. Can they get everyone back on track now? They have 2 losses last 2 weeks. Can they get everyone back on track, back to being focused? The ACC is still in front of them. Right now, Virginia, they average 29 points a game. They throw for 263. They run for 180. Solid defensive play, giving up 21.6 per game. Jeff Brom, Louisville, transfer portal built team, but Brom knows how to coach to his players' skill set. I have Louisville getting everything back in motion here, winning this game handily, taking it 37-23, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. This next matchup's a pretty fun one, and it's a pretty evenly matched game at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN2, 3-2 Cincinnati. They'll be visiting 3-2 UCF, who really needs to get things back on track. Last 2 games, they've lost to Colorado, they've lost to Florida. That was 2 teams that a lot of people had them favored to win. They did not perform. A lot of people had them as one of the teams competing for the Big 12. They've been a big letdown so far, but there's still a lot of times to get things back on track. You technically only have 1 conference loss. Right now, UCF is the favorite. 57.6% chance to win this game, 3-point favorite. Over under here is 59.5. There's going to be some points scored in this game. Cincinnati, a lot better than Cincinnati was last season. They're averaging 33.4. They throw for 308.4. Sorsby having a great season, closing in on 1,500 yards, and they run for 183.8. Those are both really good, and their defense is only giving up 21.6. For UCF, they had KJ Jefferson transfer in, but he only has 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. Not having the best season so far. Him and Gus Malzahn seem like the perfect match, but they just haven't been clicking so far. Thankfully for them, they have R.J. Harvey. He's a top 10 running back in the nation. He has 600 yards. They're still scoring 34.2. They're giving up 24.6. They have one of the best rushing offenses in the nation. They average 282.4. Get the KJ Jefferson situation figured out, and you can there's still time to compete for the Big 12 this season. I have UCF winning this one close, 33-27, covering the spread, and just barely going with the over. The next matchup at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, 4-1 Memphis. They'll be playing 2-3 USF. I feel bad for USF because 2 of their 3 losses were to top 10 Power 4 teams, Bama and Miami. Right now, Memphis, who wants to compete with Boise for that Group of 5 champ so that they could get into the Final 12, into the playoff. Right now, Memphis has a 62.6% chance to win this game. 7.5-point favorites. Over-under here is 60.5. Vegas has this being a high-scoring game. Memphis can move the ball. They have Hennigan at quarterback, closing in on 1,400 yards. They have Anderson Jr. at running back, Taylor at wide receiver. They're averaging 33.2. They throw for 276.8. They run for 159. And solid defense, only giving up 18.4 points a game. USF, when they've played well, they've played really well. When they get tired, they play really bad. It's kind of a Jekyll Hyde type team. Right now, they're averaging 27.6, throwing for 214, running for 178.8, and bad defensive play, giving up 32.8. But yes, they did play Bama and Miami. So those numbers might be a little screwed one way just because they had to play 2 top 10 teams. I have Memphis winning this one. Memphis has everything in front of them, but this is a potential upset alert team because when USF is hot, they move fast. They suck up a lot of clock. They go up tempo. They just can't keep it up for 4th quarters. I think that's where Memphis can seize it, is in the 4th quarter. Memphis wins this one 30-24. They do not cover the spread, and I'm going with the under. This next matchup is going to be a fun one at 7 p.m. on Fox Sports. 4-1 Washington State coming off the bye. They should be rested with that. The last game they played was that loss to Boise State. But this is a very talented team. They'll be playing 3-2 Fresno. Right now, Washington State on the road has a 61.8% chance to win this game. They are 3-point favorites. To over under here is 60.5. Washington State can score. They're averaging 41.8. They're throwing for 320.4. They're running for 197.4, and it's all led by Mateer at the quarterback position, closing in on 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 picks. He is the leading passer. He is the leading rusher, closing in on 500 yards rushing. He can do it all. He's top 10 in the Heisman right now. They want to rebound from that Boise loss, and neither of these teams really loves to play defense. Right now, they're giving up 32.4, 301 passing yards per game. That is atrocious. They got to do better than that. Get that down to the 200s. Come on. And then you have Fresno State. They average 31.2. They throw for 298.6. They run for 113.6. But they don't like playing defense either. They're giving up 28 points a game. They are led by Mickey Keene. He's closing on 1,400 yards. They have Sherrod. They have Delana, who's closing on 600 yards. This is a talented team. Washington State should take this game serious. They are favored here, but if you're sleeping on this game, if you don't bring your defense to at least keep them to 30 points, you could easily lose this one. But I have Mateer leading this team, rebounding with the bye week from that Boise loss, winning this one handedly, 40-28, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next game we're looking at are other Pac-12 team that's left over at 7:30 p.m. on CBS. 4-1 Oregon State versus 2-4 Nevada. Right now, Oregon State's the favorite, 59.6% chance to win this game. 4-point favorite, over under 48.5. Oregon State, they average 30 points a game. They throw for 158.6. A run-first, run-heavy team, one of the better rushing teams in the nation. They're running for 264.4. Their defense is giving up 23.2. Solid play on both sides of the ball for Nevada. They don't have a good offense. They're only averaging 24.8, but they are giving up 25.5. So they give up more points than they score. There should be opportunities for the Beavers here, but they're going to be extremely shorthanded. Hankerson might not play his game. He is the leading running back. He's closing in on 500 yards. They are pretty banged up at the running back position. They might be down both of their running backs. We'll have to see. They still have the talent with McCoy, with Walker. They should be able to win this game. Hopefully Hankerson will be able to suit up. Either way, they are a run-first team, so with the running backs potentially being out, that could slow them down, but they should be able to out-talent Nevada still, nonetheless. I have them winning this one, but close. 27-24, not covering the spread, but going with the over. The next matchup, how about some SEC on SEC play at 7:45 p.m. on the SEC Network. 3-2 Vandy with the upset of the decade, beating the crap out of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Props to them. Props to Vanderbilt for that game. That was fun to watch. They'll be playing 3-2 Kentucky. Kentucky, even though Vanderbilt beat Bama last weekend, Kentucky comes in as massive heavy favorites. No respect for Vanderbilt still. Kentucky, they have a 68.1% chance to win this game. 14-point favorites versus the team that just upset Alabama. The over-under here is 46.5. Vanderbilt, they are led by Diego Pavia. Some people are calling him the modern Johnny Football right now. He's closing on 1,000 yards passing, 400 yards rushing. They have Stowers at wide receiver. He's no Johnny Football. There's only one Johnny Football, but he is really good. He showed what he can do this past weekend. He led Vanderbilt, put the game on his shoulders, and he carried them through the finish line. Props to them. They won the first half, and they won the second half and out-physicaled Alabama. They're averaging 37.6 points a game, throwing for 209.6, running for 169. Their defense is giving up 25.6, but we know who Kentucky is under Stoops. A run-heavy team, usually, and an extremely disciplined, defensive-focused squad. They definitely have the defense this season. They're averaging 22 points a game. They've already beaten Ole Miss. They can get physical. They can beat top teams, and they almost beat Georgia, too. They almost had 2 top 10 wins. They are averaging 22. That's pretty bad, but they're only giving up 13.4. That's pretty dang good. I have Kentucky winning this one in a really physical game, close one, 26-20, not covering the spread, going with the under. Still no respect from the Vegas crowd for Vanderbilt. But you get to see how do they respond with that emotional win from Alabama. Do they keep that momentum going, or does it start to fade off? The next matchup, some ACC on ACC at 8 p.m. on the ACC Network. 4-1 Syracuse. Syracuse hoping to get to 5-1 to potentially make their case for a top 25 team, and they definitely can make that case. They'll be playing 3-3 NC State. Syracuse has a 58.2% chance to win this game. They're 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 54.5. Looking at these two squads, Syracuse is one of the best, most efficient passing teams in the country. They are led by Kyle McCord, the quarterback who was with the Buckeyes last season, has a lot of interceptions this season, but he's closing in on 1,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. That's pretty dang good. They average 35.8 points a game. They throw for 385.2, and they run for 109.6. Very pass-heavy, but it's been successful. They have McCord. They have Allen at running back. They have Penn at wide receiver. NC State, they are banged up. Grayson McCall goes down. They had CJ Bailey. They have Raphael at running back. They have Jolly at wide receiver. They are banged up. This was not the team that everyone thought NC State was going to be. Didn't they just lose to Wake Forest? I mean, they are a massive disappointing team right now. A lot of people, they were obviously previously ranked this season, but a lot of people had them as an underdog to potentially win the ACC and make the playoffs. That's definitely not going to happen right now, but you don't want to sleep on them. The talent's there. The defense is there in spurts. Right now, they average 27.8. They're giving up 33.7. Like I said, it's in spurts. It's there, but they have not been on the same page this season. They've been getting torched. If they ever get things right, though, they can get physical. They can shut you down. But Syracuse has too much ability to throw the ball. They're going to throw all over NC State. I have Syracuse winning this one 34-27. I have them covering the spread, and I have them going over. In our next matchup, how about the team that just beat the USC Trojans at 9 p.m. on the Big Ten Network, 3-3 Minnesota. They'll be playing 1-4 UCLA. How does PJ Fleck and Minnesota respond off that emotional win versus the Trojans? Can they use that as a building block to kind of catapult them going forward through the rest of the 2024 season? Or does that become the high point of the season and things start going down from here? Right now, Minnesota's 3-3, 60% chance to win this game. 5.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 40.5. Minnesota, they don't have a great offense, but they do have a very physical defense. Right now, they're averaging 25.7 points a game. They're only giving up 15.7 points a game. They are led by Brosmer. He is a veteran quarterback. He's not lighting things up this season. Just don't make any mistakes. Rely on your defense. Just make the passes when you need to make it. Keep the game conservative. You can win based on your defense. Defense does travel. It will be traveling to LA. For the Bruins, Garbers and company, this team's just not very good. They're not really good at anything. They only average 14 points a game. That's one of the worst in the nation. That's bottom 10 in the entire country. And their defense is awful, giving up 30 per game. Lots of opportunities for Minnesota to get the offense cranked up. This is a good stepping stone to continue your momentum because you're playing a really bad team. That's an easy first step. I have Minnesota winning this one 24-17, covering the spread, just barely going with the over. So that's our breakdown of all of our other matchups that stood out to me for week 7 of the 2024 college football season. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. If you have any comments on these games or anything else, drop it below and I will respond. Thank you.